Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress. The 2018 Tata Steel tournament is upon us. I'm quoting from the tournament website. The Tata Steel chess tournament is one of the most prestigious events in the international chess calendar. The Wimbledon of chess attracts the very best chess grandmasters in the world, along with thousands of amateur players, live event visitors and online visitors from around the world. In 2018, the Tata Steel chess tournament celebrates its 80th anniversary. The tournament has two main player groups, each with 14 players. They are known as the Tata Steel Masters and the Tata Steel Challengers. Both the Masters and the Challengers play their first round on Saturday, the 13th of January 2018. Let's have a quick look at the participants in the Tata Steel Masters. We have the world champion playing, Magnus Carlsen, and we have 5 of the 8 candidates that are going to play in March to determine who will be Carlsen's challenger in November. Karana is one of them, Mamedyarov is another, Wesley So and Kramnik. There's 8 times Russian champion Peter Svidler and former world champion Vishwanathan Anand is here as well. Then we have Karjakin, also in the candidates tournament. Anish Giri represents the Netherlands. It will be held in Wijk aan Zee in the Netherlands. The tournament will be held there. Wei from China, very strong Russian grandmaster Maxim Matlakov. A female player, also from China, Ho Yifan, and 2 players who qualified for the Masters by winning the Challengers last year, Adiban from India and Jones from England. Those are the first 14 players. So there will be 13 rounds, and I'm planning to make videos after each round, hopefully a few hours after the games have concluded. In this video, to get it all started, let's look at the best game of chess ever played in the 80 years of the Tata Steel tournament, which had different names before it was named Tata Steel. It was played on the 20th of January 1999, and it was world champion Garry Kasparov who had the white pieces, and his opponent was Topalov, the great Bulgarian grandmaster. And this is one of the best games of chess ever played. There are 2 games that are competing to be the best game ever played. One was Bobby Fischer's game of the century when he was 13 years old, and the other one is this one. Let's have a look. Kasparov played e4 and Topalov answered with d6, d4 and knight f6. Topalov plays the Pirch defense. I'm using the comments from Grandmaster Varujan Akobian for this video, and Akobian calls it dangerous to play the Pirch against Kasparov because of Kasparov's legendary opening preparation. At the top level, the Pirch is a slightly suspect opening. Black is attacking the e4 pawn, so Kasparov protects that pawn with knight c3, g6, bishop e3, bishop g7, queen d2, c6, and f3. Akobian explains that this is to make sure e4 is well protected and also to take any knight g4 jumps out of the position. And prepare bishop h6, which we'll see. b5 from Topalov, knight ge2 developing, knight bd7 developing, and there goes the bishop to h6. Topalov took, Kasparov took back, bishop b7, and a3 to prevent black playing b4. e5, important move, challenging white's strong control of the center, and Kasparov castled queenside. Queen e7, Topalov is also preparing to castle queenside. King b1, a prophylactic move, and the king is better on b1 than on c1, and one idea that Akobian pointed out is that in some variations the queen likes to go to a2, that's very dangerous for white, and now that idea is no longer possible. The king is defending the a2 square. a6 from Topalov, black is preparing c6, c5 and wants to make sure the b5 pawn is protected. Knight c1, that's another advantage of that king move to b1. The knight can go there and is planning to jump to b3 and a5, as we'll see in the game. Topalov castled queenside, There goes the knight, and e takes d4. That was an important moment to take in the center, because white wants to play knight a5 and d5, so black has to do something, and as said, Topalov took on d4. Rook takes back, c5 as planned, kicking the rook, rook back to d1, and knight b6. Now Topalov is preparing the d6, d5 push. Black has an advantage in development, and if he can push d5, he has a good position. g3, king b8, also prophylactic, going out of the bishop h3 check opportunities. Knight a5 from Kasparov, and Topalov does not want to lose that bishop, so he played bishop a8. Bishop h3 now, and d5. Just on time before white can play rook he1, after which d6, d5 would no longer be possible because white's rook and black's queen would be on the same file. Queen f4 check, and you cannot interpose your queen because of queen takes f6, there's a piece hanging there, and you can also not play queen d6 because then there's a fork with e5. So Topalov instead plays king a7 to get out of the check. Rook he1 from Kasparov, bringing his last piece into the game, and d4. Topalov's king is a bit open, so he does not want to open the position, he does not want to take on e4. He wants to keep the position as close as possible. Knight d5 from Kasparov, and here are a few variations that Akobian gives. Knight f takes d5 is not very good because of e takes d5, attacking black's queen. And if you play queen d6, then queen takes f7 check wins a pawn. Also bishop takes d5 is not good because of e takes d5, again attacking the queen. Queen d6 and knight c6 check is a nice fork with the bishop on a8 missing. So after knight d5, Topalov took with the b knight. Kasparov took back, attacking the queen, and the queen went to d6. It's looking good for black. If he can exchange the queens, then he will be better because of his pawn mass on the queen side. These are very strong pawns. And if white does not want to trade queens and retreats his queen, then there will be knight takes d5 and knight e3, and it's all looking very good for black. But here comes the first magical move of this game. Kasparov, let me get rid of those arrows to do the move justice. If you have not seen this game yet, then maybe you want to look here for yourself what magical move Kasparov came up with here. He took on d4, rook takes d4, he sacrifices a full rook, and it won't be the last sacrifice of the game. If you now swap the queens, then white takes back with the rook, takes his rook out of the attack, knight takes d5, rook takes f7 check, and white is happy with an extra pawn. So that's not an option. It turns out that king b6 here is the only move to keep the balance, not an easy move to find, and Topalov took up the challenge and took the rook. Now we've seen one magical move, and here comes another one straight away. Rook e7 check, another rook sacrifice. It's the only move. If you take on d4 with check, then black just plays queen b6, and then rook e7 check. Let's look at this variation that Akobian gives. Knight d7, rook takes, queen takes in the corner, rook takes d5, and black has a winning position with this extra exchange. So that wasn't possible after c takes d4, and that's why Kasparov came up with something else, another brilliant rook sacrifice. It's not really a sacrifice, you cannot take the rook. Queen takes e7, then black will get mated. Queen takes d4 check, king b8, queen b6 check, bishop interposes, knight c6 check, the bishop is pinned, king a8 only move, and checkmate. So rook e7 check is a sacrifice, but black cannot take it. Instead, he played king b6, attacking the knight, and of course the rook is also still attacked. This is really an amazing game. Here, Kasparov played queen takes d4 check, and Topalov took the knight. White is now a rook and a knight down. But of course the king, it's all about black's king, who is in trouble on a5. b4 check. Topalov, by the way, played this game very well as well. He really put up great resistance. King a4, queen c3, threatening checkmate with queen b3. So queen takes d5 from Topalov, protecting that b3 square. And now rook a7. White is now threatening checkmate here with rook takes a6. Jacobian gave one variation. If you play rook d6 to protect a6, then there is king b2 with a threat again of queen b3, and if you take that queen, then c takes b3 is checkmate, very nice. Black can try queen d4 and the queen is pinned, the white queen, but then queen takes and the rook is overworked, rook takes a6 is checkmate anyway. So rook d6 here does not work, and the only move to keep playing after rook a7 is the move that Topalov found, bishop b7, protecting a6 and giving back some material. Kasparov took the bishop, and of course you cannot take back because of queen b3 checkmate. Here it turns out that rook h2 e8 was the best move. And then white might still be winning, but it is much more difficult. Another variation that Jacobian showed was queen d1 check. Well then, white has king a2. And if you play queen d5 check, there is queen b3 check, answering a check with a check. Queen takes, c takes b3 is a very nice checkmate. We saw that variation already. So after rook takes b7, Topalov played queen c4. He's still trying to swap the queens, which would give him a winning position because he's still a rook up. But of course now the knight on f6 is hanging and Kasparov took it. Now white is only an exchange down and is threatening checkmate with queen takes a6. King takes a3 by Topalov, queen takes a6 check anyway, and king takes b4. Of course white's king is also exposed here. Black is now threatening rook d1 check. Kasparov finds another magical move, c3 check. Beautiful move. Now let's look at a few variations. Taking the pawn with the queen is not good because of queen takes b5 check. Black will get checkmated now. King a3, rook a7 check, and checkmate on the next move. So that doesn't work. King b3 doesn't work either because of queen a2 check. King takes pawn, queen b2 check, king d3, and here we had almost forgotten about our bishop on h3, but bishop f1 check wins. For starters, it wins the queen. After c3 check, Topalov took with the king. Queen a1 check came, and now you cannot go to b4 because of queen b2 check, queen b3, and a typical tactical motif, rook takes b5 check. If the king takes, white wins the queen. So after queen a1 check, Topalov played his king to d2, queen b2 check, and king d1. You cannot go to e3 because after rook e7 check, white wins. So king d1 was played by Topalov. And the king started on the 8th, and 35 moves later, the king is on d1. What an amazing game this is. But it's not finished yet. Topalov is still fighting. And Kasparov has to find the only winning move here. There's only one move that wins, and that is also with that forgotten bishop on h3. bishop f1 is the only winning move. Deflecting the queen. If the queen takes, then there is queen c2 check, king e1, rook e7 check, and checkmate on the next move. Black's queen is attacked and you cannot flee with the queen. You cannot, for example, go to e6 because queen c1 is checkmate. But Topalov still found a move. He found rook d2, counter-attacking White's queen. And here comes another miracle move. Rook d7, deflecting Black's rook. Topalov had no choice. He took the rook. White took the queen. And White is threatening queen c1. Checkmate now. So b takes c4. And if now the rook on h8 was not hanging, Black would be winning. So it almost looks like Kasparov saw this position when he played rook takes d4 15 moves ago. Because if that rook in the corner is not hanging, Black is winning here. But the rook is hanging, Kasparov took it and has now a queen versus a rook. And this is not so difficult anymore for somebody like Kasparov. Rook d3. Topalov is not ready to resign yet. He's attacking the f3 pawn and he still has a passed pawn here that he hopes to cause some trouble with. Queen e8, queen a8 from Kasparov, protecting the f3 pawn. c3. Queen a4 check. King e1. And f4 simply protecting the f pawn. f5. King c1 to make sure the c pawn, black c pawn, is under lock and key. Rook d2 and queen a7. Here on the 44th move, Topalov resigned and Kasparov had won this incredible game. Why did Topalov resign here? Well, you cannot take the pawn on h2 because of queen g1 check and you lose your rook. And if you play your h-pawn up, of course White is attacking Black's h-pawn as well. If you play h5, let's just look at one variation. Queen g7, rook takes, and it turns out White is quicker in eating up pawns. The queen is quicker than the rook. Queen takes, rook g2, queen takes, rook takes, queen takes h5, and White will now easily win with his passed pawn. What a game! Let's look at the position where Topalov resigned. I made a video on the game of the year 2017 played by Dingley Ren with Dingley Ren's own comments, and at the end of that analysis Ding said, yes, it was a beautiful game, but I still see Kasparov's game against Topalov, this game we just looked at, as a better game because Kasparov had to find so many only moves. And indeed, it looked like Black was doing quite well positionally, and only with rook takes d4, that rook sacrifice, could White take over. And then he had to find more or less 15 only moves to and including that queen takes h8 move that won him the game. If that rook had not been hanging there in the corner, the whole concept would have failed. I hope you're looking forward to the Tata Steel 2018 tournament as much as I am. As I said, I will be here every day to tell you what happened. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, please leave a comment, and if you would like to check out my Chess to Progress channel, I have a series there on viewers games, for example, please do so. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.